this next section, we'll take a closer look at the list of ingredients. Several changes have been made to the list of ingredients. The main change allows you to quickly see the different types of sugars that have been added to a food. All sugar-based ingredients will now be grouped together within parentheses beside the word sugars. This means the total amount of added sugars will now be treated as a single ingredient. The ingredients will continue to be listed in descending order by weight. This will allow consumers to easily assess the proportion of added sugars in a food. Look for products with a short ingredients list. This is usually the best indicator of a complete and nutritious food with a high nutritional value. Products with longer ingredients lists are more likely more processed. Someone with diabetes should limit their intake of the following ingredients: added sugars, saturated fats, and salt. Added sugars could be listed as the following ingredients among others: sucrose, dextrose, dextrin, saccharose, glucose, maltose, maltodextrins, lactose, fructose, invert sugar, brown sugar, honey, syrup, molasses, fruit juice concentrate, and cane juice. Saturated fat could be listed as butter, powdered whole milk solids, cocoa butter, suet, fat, lard, tropical oil, palm or palm kernel oil, copra oil, coconut oil, or hydrogenated vegetable oil. And salt could be listed as salt, monosodium glutamate, sodium, baking powder, baking soda, soy sauce, brine, or kelp. Here is the information that must be included in the nutrition facts table. The nutrition facts table gives information about the number of calories and 13 nutrients that a specific food contains. The reference serving size has been set by Health Canada based on the eating habits of Canadians. This serving size doesn't necessarily represent the amount of food that you will eat. Compare the serving size to the amount of food that you expect to eat and make the necessary adjustments. For someone with diabetes, the following elements are to monitor: the number of grams of saturated fats, the number of grams of protein, and the number of grams of carbohydrates, fibers, and sugars, whether they're naturally present in a food, such as sugars from fruit, milk, and some vegetables, or whether they've been added to a product. To tell if the sugars have been added to the product, look for sugar-based ingredients in the list of ingredients. Carbohydrates include fiber, starch, sugar alcohols, and sugar, whether they're naturally present in a food or have been added to a product. For someone with diabetes, they need to pay attention to the amount of carbohydrates that will affect their blood sugars. This is calculated as the amount of total carbohydrates minus the number of grams of fiber minus half the amount of sugar alcohols. For someone using the advanced method of carbohydrate counting and rapid-acting insulin, the Diabetes Canada 2018 Clinical Practice Guidelines does not recommend adjusting the amount of rapid-acting insulin to the intake of sugar alcohols. This assumes that the person is not consuming more than 10 grams of sugar alcohols per day. For example, for a 2-slice serving of this bread, we have 37 grams of total carbohydrates, minus 4 grams of fibers, for a total of 33 grams of carbohydrates that will affect your blood sugars. In the second example, we start with 34 grams of total carbohydrates. We then subtract 1 gram of fiber, which brings us to 33 grams of carbohydrates. We then take the 13 grams of sugar alcohols and divide it by 2 to get 7 grams. We take 33 grams minus 7 grams to get 26 grams of carbohydrates that will affect your blood sugars. Another way to assess whether the amount of carbohydrates in a food is high or not, and whether or not you should incorporate it into your menu, is to consider the amount of carbohydrates you need for each meal and snack. The majority of people with diabetes need between 45 and 75 grams of carbohydrates per meal and 15 grams of carbohydrates per snack. If a bagel has 45 grams of carbohydrates, is this considered a lot? The first question to ask yourself is, what are your carbohydrate needs per meal? If, for example, you require 60 grams of carbohydrates for each meal, having a bagel with 45 grams of carbohydrates will leave you with 15 grams of carbohydrates for the other foods on your plate. The next question to ask yourself is, what other foods will you be having in your meal? For example, a balanced breakfast is a whole grain product a fruit, and a source of protein. If you'll be adding half of a banana, for example, to your meal, this will add 15 grams of carbohydrates, making a total of 60 grams of carbohydrates. If you decide to add a source of protein, consider that some proteins do contain carbohydrates. For example, 30 milliliters of peanut butter provides 4 grams of carbohydrates. 250 milliliters of milk provides 13 grams of carbohydrates, and 50 grams of Swiss cheese will actually add no grams of carbohydrates to your meal. Here is a question for you. Which of the following foods contain carbohydrates? A diet sugar-free soft drink, bread with no sugar added, cookies with no sugar added, unsweetened orange juice, or unsweetened yogurt? The answer is all of the above except for the diet sugar-free soft drink. Here is another question for you. Can you tell just by looking at the list of ingredients which of these two products contains more sodium? The answer is that it's impossible to tell just by looking at the list of ingredients which of the two breads contains more sodium. The list of ingredients gives no information about the amount of a nutrient within a food. For this, you would need to look at the nutrition facts table. By reading the nutrition facts table, you will see that bread A contains more sodium per serving compared to bread B, despite bread B having sodium higher up in the list of ingredients. In summary, a nutritional claim gives true information about a food, but it doesn't always give you the complete picture about the nutritional value. Claims about a particular aspect of a food can be used by manufacturers to attract your attention to it. The benefits claimed, however, don't necessarily make it a better choice compared to the original product or comparable items. Be sure to always read the nutritional claims, the list of ingredients, and the nutrition facts table to get a complete picture of the nutritional value of a food. This course has been made possible with the financial support of Roche Diabetes Care, a division of Hoffmann-La Roche Limited.